Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Front Page, only on the AIM Network, India's definitive media organization and voice on everything AI and technology. What awaits you on Front Page today? Let me tell you. Andre Karpathy rewriting ChatGPT. Of course, then we have Indian IT stocks stumbling. We also have the fact that there is going to be a discussion on something called Similey, which should make all of humankind panic and sweat a little bit. And that and lots more is awaiting you right behind these headlines. Here are the headlines. Indian IT stocks stumble as Anthropic secures $30 billion at a $380 billion valuation, proving the market now values AI-driven outcomes over the traditional headcount-based billable hours model. Agnikul Cosmos and NeevCloud partner to repurpose Agni-Ban rocket stages into space-based AI servers, targeting a 2026 pilot launch to address Earth's growing energy and latency challenges. Andre Karpathy dismantles AI mystique with MicroGPT and raw 243-line implementation, while his backing of Similey signals the industry's aggressive pivot from simple text generation to predictive, high-stakes agentic engineering. Google's Gemini 3 Deep Think upgrade abandons simple Q&A for scientist-level reasoning, hitting 84.6% on ARC AGI 2. It tackles very complicated, incomplete data to solve complex real-world problems where answers don't exist. And finally, Similey AI, backed by $100 million from titans like Andre Karpathy and Fifi Lee, leverages memory streams and autonomous reflection to simulate human populations with 85% accuracy. Wow! Transforming LLMs into high-fidelity social engines. Indian IT didn't crash because of one bad quarter. It actually crashed because one AI company just proved work can scale without headcount. Let us, of course, go ahead and check the tape first. Infosys, TCS, Wipro sliding up to 5%. Nifty IT dropped nearly 5%. The headlines blame weak global tech cues, rate worries, ADRs falling overnight. Honestly, these are just distractions. Please ignore them. Because the reality is this. While the fossils were hemorrhaging, Anthropic casually broke the internet. $30 billion grabbed $380 billion valuation, unleashed by GIC and Coatue. Forget simple venture capital and witness an actual sovereign takeover. Anthropic claims they are doing $14 billion in run rate revenue, growing 10 times annually. But here is a number that shocked the market. Claude code alone, well, became a $2.5 billion run rate business. This is relevant because Indian IT is priced on a very specific model. Effort equals revenue. The so-called people pyramid, which essentially mandates hiring more bodies, billing more hours, and resultantly making more money. But Anthropic is doing the opposite. Their strategy is intelligence equals output. Billable hours are getting replaced by agentic outcomes. And once a client experiences that kind of power, once a CFO realizes they can buy the output instead of the hours, the human pyramid stops feeling like an investment and starts looking more like a legacy issue. The Bengaluru signal, how can we miss that, is actually currently front and center stage because Anthropic skipped the San Francisco victory lap post-raising $30 billion and headed straight for the tech heart of India. At their inaugural research event here, K.R. Bradwell announced a statistic that everyone managed to overlook. And that very stat is, India is the second largest user of Claude in the entire world, end quote. You know, this stat also conveys a very different kind of an industrial pivot. it tracks exactly where the developer behavior shift is hitting the hardest. The very talent base currently propping up the legacy model is the same talent base mastering the tool that dismantles it. And now, of course, to shed light on what Anthropic is actually building. Anthropic's Kashyap Murli took the stage and said, Claude code is not chat, it is execution, a bare metal harness. It edits code, asks questions, and does things. Then, of course, Mr. Murli cut to the chase by mentioning, we develop Claude code with Claude code, end quote. The system is now building itself, which is compounding velocity. And then, of course, he unveiled the new reality. No heavy process, just get it done. An obsession with developer experience. While legacy IT is busy defending processes from 2010, the next value layer is being built around evaluation, grounding, and trust. And here, of course, is the front page take. This brings us to the $380 billion endgame. Anthropic says this money goes into frontier research and infrastructure expansion. Anthropic is positioning Claude as foundational infrastructure across AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure. So let's just think about the buyer psychology here. Claude has moved past being a simple plugin. It's actually becoming the infrastructure companies are building on. And here is the question that should actually keep every services leader awake tonight. I'm sorry, but had to do this. If your client standardizes on Claude for building, and if the AI owns the context, writes the code, and resolves the bugs, what exactly are they still outsourcing to you? And you know what? This is no longer a rhetorical question. The market is already pricing in the answer. What's your take? Is the service model dead or just evolving? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Front Page by the AIM Network. Always remember, think AI, think AIM, and of course, like, share, subscribe. Forget Bengaluru, forget Virginia, forget Dubai. The next great cathedral of computing isn't on land, it's circling right over our house every 90 minutes, that too. Agnikul Cosmos, the Indian space tech darling, just shook hands with NeevCloud on a plan so bold, it feels almost impossible. They want to build a digital powerhouse in orbit. Now I know the reaction, right? That sounds more like pure cinema. That's just expensive imagination. Or for that matter, that's just Elon Musk's search history after 3 a.m. And maybe it is. But you know what? The focus just tad bit closer and it unveils this. Usually, when a rocket is launched, payload goes up, stage falls back and burns up, and finally, there are ocean debris. All too wasteful and expensive. Agnikul says, let us put an end to this by repurposing the upper stage of the Agniban rocket. So instead of space junk, it stays up, expands, and becomes a platform. Then, of course, we have NeevCloud stepping in and loading it with AI compute modules. And all of a sudden, we don't have a spent rocket, but a server farm. They are calling it an Orbital AI cloud. And Agnikul has ambitiously tracked this since 2019. But now, you know, the timing is perfect. Why the orbital detour? Because Earth is heating up. These digital systems are ravenous. They inhale electricity and exhale enough heat to melt a server rack. On the ground, that means strained power grids, drying up water supplies, and a logistical headache that never seems to end. But in orbit, the physics change completely. Because we have the sun, thankfully abundantly providing constant unfiltered energy. And then, of course, there is the vacuum, which is the ultimate cooling system. Heat just dissipates. Then there is the proximity play. Satellites are constantly vacuuming up data, but sending all those raw files back down to Earth is a massive bottleneck. So the point is, why bother with the round trip? Just crunch the numbers up there. One does not need to beam down the entire crime scene, just the fingerprints will do. Watch the pivot. Agnikul is done just being the heavy lifter. They've moved from merely launching the hardware to owning the actual processing that happens inside of it, which means no longer are they just providing the shell, they're selling the high-performance computing power that runs the show. It's loud, it's wildly ambitious, and yes, it's a staggering amount of talk. But you know what? Agnikul isn't the only one looking at the stars and seeing a skyscraper full of circuits. Is India ready? That's the question. There is one other player, take me to space. They have Orbital AI, run AI directly on satellites. So, Agnikul has company, but the Indian field is tiny, early, fragile, and the bigger picture, when we step back, gives us a view of the water, which is full of sharks. SpaceX, Google, Axiom Space, and they're all circling. Prototype data centers are already on the ISS. The Americans are moving and the giants are waking up. Cloud, hyperscale, edge. The next move is orbital. If this works, and it's a massive if, the geography of the industry changes. Let's just forget about the availability zones in Mumbai. We'll be actually measuring infrastructure by inclination and altitude. The ground game is hitting a hard ceiling. Agnikul and NeevCloud are trying to bypass the constraints of Earth's physics entirely. So for more on the shift to the atmosphere and such awesome, amazing stories, watch this space. And I meant that literally. And of course, always remember, think AI, think AIM, and like, share, subscribe. Most people think GPT is a deity, an untouchable trillion-dollar black box buried in a server farm, a mystery of sorts. And then there's Andre Karpathy, OpenAI founding member, Tesla Autopilot architect, the guy who coined vibe coding, by the way. Developers worship him, and why not? And he just pulled back the curtains on a file that shattered the illusion. He basically said, relax, here is GPT, 243 lines, pure Python. No PyTorch, no NumPy, no massive libraries hiding the wiring. He calls it micro GPT. But as we all know by now that LLMs aren't mystical anymore. They're just engineering. Before we get into, shredding this apart, what I want you to do, and do this very carefully, slam that like button, subscribe, because the conversation is moving fast and changing very rapidly. Karpathy just stripped down the mystery down to its bone. He released a single tiny Python file that runs the entire core of a GPT model. No bloat, no complex libraries, just the raw mechanics from start to finish. It showcases a move which proves that the tech dominating the world can actually fit into a few hundred lines of code. Tokenization, embeddings, attention, normalization, loss, gradients, optimization, sampling. You know what? It is all there. And he cut to the chase. This is the full algorithmic content. Everything else is just efficiency, end quote. The developers are losing their minds over this, and why not? Why? Because micro GPT strips a transformer down to first principles. It's actually the read it in one sitting moment. It uses a very tiny autograd engine that shows you how gradients happen. It uses the Adam optimizer that shows you how it learns. It uses RMS norm, residual connections, autoregressive sampling. It's actually the KNRC programming language book for the AI era. It isn't easy. It's actually clean. It's built from basic math operations. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the point. Now, of course, comes the uncomfortable truth, as there always is. If the trillion-dollar algorithm fits in 243 lines, then the advantage is not who knows transformers. Everyone knows transformers. The game has actually changed, bringing us to the new advantage, which is who can scale it, who has the energy contracts, the proprietary data loops, and crucially, who ships the best agent workflows. This explains Karpathy's change in direction. He moved from vibe coding to agentic engineering. MicroGPT isn't trying to kill GPT-5. That would be missing the point altogether. On the other hand, it is doing something far more dangerous. It is actually making the foundation legible. When something is legible, as we all know, it becomes teachable, reproducible, commoditized. And if you're a developer, this is power. But if you're selling the AI wizardry, I think you might need to start panicking a little bit. And Karpathy is walking the talk. While he teaches the internet how GPT works, he's making moves as an investor as well. A startup called Similey, which has raised $100 million, and Karpathy is in. What do? They predict human behavior. They predict the questions people ask on earnings calls. So the race now is about agents, infrastructure, and energy. Who can turn intelligence into outcomes? That's the battle. 243 lines, and suddenly the future looks a lot less magical and a lot more competitive, mind you. Tell us, what is your take? Is the magic gone, or is this just the beginning? Please do let us know on front page. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. Quit feeding the AI prompts. Start hurling it with crisis. That is the ultimatum from Silicon Valley now. Sundar Pichai just unleashed Gemini 3 DeepThink, and the stakes are moving hard and fast. We are through with the AI that merely parrots notes. We are actually charging into the era of the digital polymath. The mission? Confront the wreck, master the mayhem, defeat the riddles where the winning move isn't written. Most AI models panic when the rules are blurry. They hallucinate when the data is incomplete. But DeepThink was built in the lab with the scientists. It is designed to think through the uncertainty. It doesn't just retrieve, it reasons, and the numbers backing this up, they're really, really good. ARC AGI 2, this is the benchmark for general reasoning. Gemini hits 84.6%. Then there is, of course, the humanities last exam. Sounds dramatic? It should, because it is. DeepThink scored 48.4%. Wow. And it did it without using external tools. Raw compute. Add in a gold medal performance in the 2025 Math Olympiad, an ELO rating of 3455 in competitive programming. Physics, chemistry, these aren't marketing, just silly things. These are the limits of synthetic intelligence being tested in real time. But skepticism is healthy. Benchmarks are one thing, the real world is another. However, early users are spotting something a little different here. We have mathematicians using this to find flaws in papers that already passed peer review. That's scary. Human experts missed it. The machine caught it. It is designing crystal growth methods for semiconductors. It is modeling complex physical systems. We are watching the transition, ladies and gentlemen, from productivity tool to knowledge accelerator. And here is where it gets tangible for the builders. So listen in. DeepThink is bridging the gap between theory and the physical world. Engineers are using it to interpret dense data sets. They are converting sketches directly into 3D printable objects. It doesn't just describe the object, it helps you hold it in your very hand. And Google is making sure this gets everywhere. So if you are on AI Ultra, you have it in the app. If you are a developer, it is in the early access API. This is the ecosystem play. Google wants DeepThink embedded in every research lab and engineering pipeline by the end of the year. This upgrade, as we know, didn't happen in a vacuum. Because weeks ago, Alibaba's Qwen model stunned the market. It beat Gemini 3 Pro, it beat GPT 5.2 on humanities last exam. China, of course, is all in on reasoning efficiency. OpenAI and Anthropic, on the other hand, they are betting the house on the agents. AI that does things. Google is betting, on the other hand, on scientific intelligence. The race isn't about who chats the best anymore. It is actually about who solves the hardest problems, and that too, faster. And here, of course, is the front page take. First, we had research. We got answers. Then we had reasoning. We got logic. Now we are entering the phase of discovery, which is new materials, new medicines, new engineering solutions. The AI isn't just reciting the textbook anymore. It's actually helping us write the next chapter. But I actually really want to know, what do you think? Is this the breakthrough scientists needed, or is it just another benchmark battle? Please do let us know in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short little break. But when we are back, we are going to be back with a conversation which genuinely is making me sweat a little bit. What we are diving into today is a claim so ambitious and ethically terrifying, it makes accidentally joining a cult while looking for a gym look like a responsible Saturday afternoon. We are of course talking about the claim that human behavior itself can be simulated and predicted at scale. A Silicon Valley startup called Similey says their tech can forecast how customers react to products, how voters respond to policies, and even what Wall Street analysts will ask on earnings calls. They're claiming 80% accuracy, which to be fair, is roughly the same success rate I have at guessing which pull door is actually a push door. I hope you enjoyed that little one. Anyway, these are massive promises with terrifying implications for business, politics, and the very concept of free will. So we are asking, what is actually being built? What data is being shoveled into this maw? And is this genuine predictive power or just a very expensive game of guess who? To help us untangle this nightmare, we are joined by journalist, our very own brilliant Supreet Kondinia, who has been investigating Similey's origins and what's actually happening beneath this very shiny, exciting algorithmic surface. Welcome to the show, Supreet.
Hello, Sudhi.
Are you terrified enough to get into this conversation?
No, okay, not terrified. It's pretty fun.
Because you have been, of course, exploring
yes.
this for a very long time.
Yes,
I would like for you to first please tell us in terms of what is the $100 million for?
Yep.
Got it? So, second thing is the fact that what is Similey?
Right.
And how is it different?
Right. I think to start off with, it is very different. It's unlike anything we've seen before. I'm sure you can resonate with it, given you've not covered such kind of a news in
never
is the right one. So yeah, they've got $100 million funding from Fifi Lee and
And
MD
Andre
Angelo
Karpathy, yeah.
of Quora, and of course Andre Karpathy, whose news that you just shared with our audience, and then we've got Bain Capital, bunch of investors. But the interesting part is now they're betting on this thesis that LLMs can't effectively mimic or simulate a human behavior, right?
Okay.
And no human is the same human.
Sure.
And if I were to quote Andre Karpathy, he got this brilliant analogy that LLMs that you talk to, that businesses use, almost often have a single personality, right?
Which is true.
But they're trained on a diverse set of data that
Right.
can include like millions of people's voices, their thoughts, their specific personalities.
True.
So why not build an AI platform that leverages this, and I quote, statistical power, right? Why don't you build an LLM that brings a lot more specific voices, a lot more nuance, a lot more differentiation? This is exactly what Similey AI does. It is an AI platform that helps companies or users let it behave like a human. Now I'll tell you why this is important, why they got $100 million, of course. So now user research is such an important process of product building, right? Whenever you integrate or plan to build a new feature in your product, you need to know whether the users like it. Your product might not just have one type of user, right? You might have a teenager to a grandmother.
True.
And the dominant population of your users could still be the middle-aged folks.
Sure.
You need to do a lot of user research. This involves bringing a lot of focus groups, asking questions to a lot of people, and that's tiring. More than tiring, it's very time-consuming. With this day and age where people are just rushing to release products, why not use an AI to do that?
Right.
So what Similey AI does is that it gets you a lot of human personas that you can ask questions to and get unique insights.
But then tell me this.
Right.
There are personas,
Right.
correct? These are generated personas, am I right?
Yes.
So then there is a slight gap then, Supreet,
Exactly.
in terms of the actual human response
Right.
vis-a-vis a generated response.
Right.
Will that make it accurate, not accurate, hallucinate, or give out, spew out data which is not very relevant?
Right, great question. I think that's one thing that immediately popped into my mind. Like, how is this any different from an LLM?
Yes.
Right, LLMs also pretend to be a particular user persona.
Correct.
But if you dig deep into how this works, and the man himself, Joonsung Park, has been doing research on this since 2022. So I'll tell you how they did it. Your first question you asked, how do we know that this persona is coming from a real voice?
Yeah.
So while building their product, and I quote, he said in an interview with another media outlet today, he's gotten interviews with like millions of real users, right? And he's taken down how they would react to specific situations,
Okay.
and how would they respond to a particular survey. And this is the crux of the data set, or the base with which the model works, right? The intelligence of the data is extracted from conversations from real humans. One experiment that they did recently, a few years ago, is that they spoke to 1,052 participants in a survey. They took all of their responses and trained 1,052 AI agent personas.
Okay.
Meaning each participant had an AI agent assigned to them.
Fair enough.
Then they retrained the AI agent again for a second round just to ensure everything is fine. And then when they sent the 1,052 trained AI agents to perform a bunch of other surveys and compared their performance and their outputs to the outputs that the 1,052 actual
Right.
humans did, it came frighteningly close,
Oh, wow,
with
interesting.
85% accuracy.
Very interesting.
Right? And now, what this leads to is that now you have these agentic personas that behave like real humans.
Right.
Now you have the answer of how they are trained. Two, these don't work like fine-tuned LLMs or something where instructions are lost. Consider each agent as something that has an isolated data of its own.
Okay.
It does not know what agent B is thinking about. It does not know what agent C's persona is. There's not a lot of mix-up going on.
Sure.
Right? So I just keep it short.
So they're in silos. In
Exactly,
a way,
they're in
right?
silos.
Right.
And each time it responds to an answer, it does not just go and work the way LLMs do.
Right.
It works through memory, right? It sort of gets back all of its previous responses. It takes a pause, reflects on it, ensures that the information it's fetching is contextually relevant to this question, just like me and you think.
Right.
The moment you're asking me a question, you're going back to, okay, what was this news about, how recent is it, how recent.
You're connecting the dots.
Exactly.
Right.
It exactly is trained to behave like a human. Lot of reflection. I think our producers are going to put a graphic here which shows the loop of there's a lot of reflection going on. There's a lot of data.
That was your way of questioning their efficiency right now.
No.
I like it.
Because that graph is really important for our viewers.
Right. So it will come eventually.
Exactly. Yes. So there's a lot of reflection, there's a lot of cyclic work going on. It's not like you punch in a prompt and you get an answer. There's no randomization. It's very specific. And look, I might not have done a great job of explaining it, but for the folks who are interested, I think we're going to link the entire research paper. And yeah, but there's also another crazy game
that
they sort of did.
But I wanted to understand this.
So,
I mean, when you talked about 1052 and I connected to the kind of, maybe the other kind of research experiments which have taken place to kind of bring this to life.
Yes.
One thing I want to add to that is how will it behave when you replicate it at a mass scale?
Exactly.
1052.
Right.
Lesser number.
Right.
But then when you kind of blow it up at a mass scale, Supreet, and of course also I'd like you to tell us.
Right. Before we get that, I'll answer your question. So let's say you're a company. I'll give you a few examples. So companies have already seemed to use, that's the interesting point. Before they've raised funding, they've gotten companies to use their tool.
Okay.
That's a big enough signal.
Which is a good thing.
And these are really good companies. We've had CVS, the leading pharma chain in US. We've got Telstra, the leading Australian telecom company. And what happens is when they're doing a user research, right? They ask the Similey AI platform, look, spin up a user persona who's like a 75-year-old man, and Similey AI will generate a persona based on the training and the data sets that it has. That agent will exactly behave like a 75-year-old man. How his lifestyle is going to be.
Right.
He's not the most tech savvy and not the most tech crazy folks. He's someone who's grounded. He needs everything properly. You don't need tire him out. So you have that user persona, and he's going to exactly behave the way a 75-year-old man would, right? And so the scale is going to be purely based on the 1052 agents, because these are 1052 different personas.
Got it.
And these are more than enough personas for that a company sort of needs.
Okay.
Exactly. At best, you're dealing with like 7-8 kind of personas in your user research process, if I'm not wrong.
Right.
So the agent is going to spin up the personas, and it's going to let you communicate with it, know the agent's preferences and so on. One other example is the founder gave is that during earnings call, right? Investors, not investors, the executives, the CEOs, the CTOs, CPOs, they're asked a lot of questions from different kind of analysts, right? You can spin up personas of analysts and the different kind of media folks and predict well in advance what kind of questions that they would ask, right? Based on the history of questions that they've asked, based on how that persona would specifically behave in the situation. So you're ready. You sort of know what kind of questions are going to come your way.
But tell me this here, Supreet, this comes to my mind. When you talked about, let's say, the 75-year-old man, when you talked about the analyst, when you talked about all of those factors, are we not falling into a situation where we are also just looking at these as cliches which are putting these personas together? Because there is no sort of a nuanced, is there a nuanced, for example, flavor to them?
Right.
Or is it just generic methods that are being followed?
Right. No, of course, there's going to be a certain degree of nuance, because if, and I again, once again, would like to quote Joonsung Park in his interview, he said, we've trained this model with millions of voices. And here's the most interesting part. The AI agents in Similey, if I read right, they're capable of performing interviews on their own. And I believe that they're going to continue taking interviews, the AI agents themselves,
because
build more and more personas.
You got to keep doing
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Personas keep evolving, right?
Right, exactly.
You introduce a new technology to someone today, their persona is going to change. True. They might buy a new phone, today they might buy the latest iPhone, and their persona is going to change given the kind of features that they're exposed to.
Yeah.
So obviously I am 100% sure there's going to be a continuous process. As you mentioned, it's going to be
an ever-evolving
of no use if the personas and the model weights and data sets aren't updated. I'm sure that's going to happen.
Right.
There's explicit mentioning that the AI agents are capable of autonomously taking interviews, creating a persona on its own.
Oh, nice.
And then just getting the job done. But again, these are early days. We just have dense reports and research that he's done since last 2 years. This seems like a lot of huge work in progress. So, but if I have time, Sudhi, I'd like to talk about an interesting project that we do.
Sure, please.
So, you've played Sims, right? from EA Sports. I think a lot of our audience viewers. So it's basically a simulated environment where you just simulate the real world. There's a boy, there's a girl, there's someone who owns a cafe. It's just a
There
game
could be a dog and a cat.
Exactly.
Why are you leaving them out?
Exactly. So it's just a simulated game where you just play a real world. I don't know why that makes sense, because you'd want to escape the real world to play games, but that on another day. So what they did was they built something called a small will. They put 25 agents with each of them having a different persona.
Not loaded at all to call it small whale, no?
Exactly. Exactly. So there's a pharmacist, there's a teacher, there's an old man, there's a student. 25 different personas. They're placed in a town, right? They're like interact freely.
Okay.
Each of the persona is seeded with specific instructions and details about itself, and they're told now you just start communicating.
Sure.
The brilliant part is that when they started interacting, because of how the model was built, right? I told you there's this loop of they take a prompt, they relay it through its own memory, fetch relevant details. They don't behave like a standard LLM. They found out that they started behaving like real humans.
Wow.
Without any explicit instructions that behave like a human with ChatGPT or any tool. I don't
Moltbook, I mean that entire
exactly.
Moltbook Reddit angle, is it?
That's another.
That's
Yeah. But again, that's just to test their autonomous capabilities. But here, just really want them to behave like humans. I'll give a few examples, right? One agent started running as a mayor for the town.
Nice.
Because the agent realized it has the experience, whatnot, the age, and how much he liked the town based on the instructions. And guess what? This agent's plan to run as a mayor started spreading as a gossip in the Smallville virtual town, right? And then someone tried to organize a Valentine's Day party for their partner. And guess what? Other agents started pitching in and just started giving gifts to each other.
There was a sense of homie that came in.
Exactly. They started behaving like humans, and that was a clear enough signal for the founders and researchers that look, our underlying model
well, utopian humans.
Exactly.
Because there were no serial killers who suddenly propped up.
Of course. If there were, I don't think they'd report. But anyway, yeah, I mean, that was a good enough signal that their model and their techniques sort of worked. They were able to get LLMs to behave like a human angles. So I kept talking about the loop. They factor in recency, relevancy, and importance. Based on these three factors is when they sort of give the output, and they continuously reflect based on the situation whether their output is fine enough, and they keep planning.
Well. But tell me this, Supreet. I mean, you talked about these three factors, importance, you talked about reflection, you talked about they're constantly, working well with each other as a team, pretty much like you and I do. I had to slide that in. But no, what I have to ask you is this, in conclusion, is why would this help, let's say, companies? Why would this help customers? Why? Finally, that is the end goal. So what would you say that this entire mammoth of an operation is being built towards?
Right, of course. So I am not a business owner.
Not yet.
No.
Long life to go, Supreet.
So let me quote Shrikant Narasimhan, who is the VP of Enterprise Customer Experience at CVS Health, leading healthcare and pharma firm in US. I'll just read out his quote. With Simile, we don't need to fail fast in front of customers. We can fail safely in a controlled environment.
Okay.
Teams can test, learn, and refine until they're confident it's ready for the real world. So what happens is that when it comes to A/B testing, when you want to test out a new feature, you can't do it in silos. You have to expose a group of beta users or a bunch of larger group of users or even focus groups to sort of help them get a first-hand experience of what your new feature is about. And you would not want to fail in front of them.
Sure.
That is one issue that might not be significant, but it takes a lot of time and effort to get these people together, roll out, and you need to, focus groups are a very hard task. I've spoken to UX researchers before,
sure.
I've spoken to market folks before. You can at best get 100 people in a room. Do you think that 100 people could be a good enough extrapolation of the billion user community that everybody wants to build for? Right now, everybody wants everybody to use their application, right? So why not have an environment where AI agents can simulate human behavior? When you can spin up a unique human persona to an AI agent itself, and let it act as a human. So within your laptop, within your desktop, you can put your idea, you can put your product feature,
Understood.
you get feedback
So
quickly.
it works with pharma,
Exactly.
for example, moving forward.
Exactly.
It will work with, let's say, defense. It will
Exactly.
work with so many other...
Exactly. Yeah, starting off with, of course, you can do little things like, okay, how do I reorganize my product menus?
Sure,
Would
sure,
you like
sure.
it? Like, hey, we did a new front page redesign, right?
Right. It's
we
nice,
have,
no?
Yeah, and we have like
You
what?
want to ask Smallville?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Smallville. We're like what, 2.6 lakh subscribers and growing every
Right,
day with
true.
thousands and 10,000s more.
2.7, I was just
Exactly,
told.
2.7 lakh, great.
They're very particular about this.
So why don't we get Similey to sort of ask them, right, something more consequential. Hey, we're experimenting with this new format. Do you think they will like it? Do you think you're going to like it?
Makes sense.
So this helps you speed up your product decisions, and the accuracy they're talking about is 85%. So 85% a match to exact human behavior.
But also very quickly, Supreet, it's very interesting that, with minds like Fifi Lee and Andre Karpathy being a part of this entire ecosystem, because they are very beautiful, different minds. They're thread-bearing, let's say, a GPT. They're making things legible.
Of course.
So when they kind of come into something, there is something very revolutionary afoot.
Exactly. That itself, your investors sometimes are a big testament that your product is a legitimate idea. That is one thing, but if you look at the founder himself, again, I need to keep repeating this, he's been doing this since 2022. They're like a huge...
So have you?
Yeah.
Investigating this.
Investigating. 9 a.m. today. So they've had a comprehensive 250-page research report out there with each of their experiments, and it's a very novel idea, right? Because look, tomorrow you can think in your own mind what apps I need to build, right? What products I need to build.
Yeah, but I know what you mean.
At the end of the day, you need to know what your users really want.
Absolutely, I agree.
The best part is that what users want also isn't straightforward, because Henry Ford once said, I don't know if he actually said, but this is the thing that keeps doing the rounds. If you ask people what they'd actually want in life, they'd say, I need faster horses. Right? So user research is a very comprehensive process. It's not a black and white. Hey, so what AI product that you want, you can't just tell me like, hey, you know what, I need a faster AI chatbot. That's probably not what you want to, what you want in life. As opposed to me asking you 10 questions, 15 questions, analyze your persona, go back and do my homework, then I unearth that, you know what, Sudhi has this missing in his AI workflow. I don't want to build this to him.
Got it. You got another report. I want you to share that. There was another cohort, right?
Yep, exactly.
A testimonial is what I meant.
Yeah, exactly. Wealthfront, another firm who already have used Similey said that they expanded their qualitative research. Again, this is qualitative research. I stress on the word qualitative because opinions, perspectives, thoughts, insights of human beings can't be put on an Excel sheet.
True.
You need to get their behavior out. And he said this Similey expanded our qualitative research scope by 15 times without losing depth. Speaking with their simulated customers, AI customers, helps us quickly identify areas of opportunity for ongoing research. Again, these are testimonials on Similey's website. Of course, they're going to be positive.
Which is fine, but the fact is, if you were to conclude this, let's say, Supreet, in let's say a couple of lines.
Right.
It is early days, agreed.
Right.
But how would you like to conclude this development of a Simile being backed by big names?
Exactly. It works in a way where anyone who's building AI, Simile is a big gift for them, because your product is worthless if you don't know who your users are, what your users need. So it sort of goes hand in hand. Today, if Andre Karpathy and Fifi Lee are building any sort of products or any sort of research, they'd probably love a tool like Simile to sort of understand what their customers, what their potential human users would need. So I think in this day and age, user research is paramount. It's a new technology. The population hasn't seen this before, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So user research is paramount. It's super important. You need to know what your users want. While you refine, do you know if your user wants the latest LLM or he just wants a better user interface, right? You need to
Agreed.
You need to do a lot of work talking to users. Users are forefront. Every single dollar that's being...
It wipes away that long, laborious work.
Dude, I'll tell you one thing. We talk so much about data centers, chips, GPUs, models, parameters, research papers. End of it, every single thing boils down to what me and you hold in our hand. It abstracts into
needs to be tangible.
Yeah, it abstracts on this just thing that people like me and you use in their daily life. all of those investments are towards the end user. Your media reports, your investors, all of that is of course there, but users are paramount. Simile is to understand your users, and if you don't understand your users, everything
What's
is just
the
going to
point?
come crashing
Yeah.
down. I think that's
Makes
exactly
sense.
what you want
Fair
Simile
enough.
for.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Supreet, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. A lot of ramblings, but we'll be sure
No.
to include
I think a lot of interesting
It's a new
insights as well.
technology. I think it's
Yeah.
really interesting. It's really crazy and fun to sort of read up
I'm
about
so
it.
sorry, but the graphic never came up. Sorry. You
That's
need to
all
mull
right.
over that. But
That's all right. We're gonna-
ladies and gentlemen, there it is. Supreet with his wonderful insights as always. And I feel that what he's talked about is the next revolution maybe. So we'd love to know what you feel in the comments below about Simile doing it with a smile. Think AI? Think AI.
Think AI.
Yeah. Hi Mohit, once again welcome to the show. Happy to have you here as usual. This is your AI talk show.
Thank you so
where-
much for having me again.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I mean, always like having conversation with you, and given how you cover India AI extensively, and all of the startups that are doing amazing work. So I just want to set the context for our viewers today, and want to ask you. You have been using a lot of AI tools, I don't want to name them,
Yeah.
but for a while now, it's been more than 2 years you've been using them. So I just want to understand, have you ever felt like an outsider while using them in terms of not understanding the context? Why I'm asking that is, say, in fact, if a chatbot suggests you, say, broccoli and kiwi for iron deficiency here in India.
Okay.
Or while most Indian homes think like palak or spinach, jaggery good, or ragi.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where I'm coming from. And then it
Okay.
also recommends something like quinoa when we have millets, feeding this country for centuries,
centuries,
right? Then it says for health reason you might ask something like, for I'm not feeling well, what is the medication for this? It tells you Tylenol. I don't even know what that is. Instead, we have paracetamol and crocin. These are some of the stuff that happens in India, and it also suggests urgent care. You need something important. It says visit the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And how will you make sense of visit the neighborhood when you have padosi ka clinic? People go to clinic here, right? And also when I come to electrolyte drinks, we make nimbu pani here.
Yeah.
Right? So the answers are correct.
Yeah. The more you talk about it, the more I realize that I never get the answers that are actually immediately there for me.
Correct.
And I think that is something that all these Indian AI models and everything that is coming up can actually fill that gap.
Got it. Yeah. Before I set the tone there, but do you think relevance feel important? And honestly, I can go on and on with these examples, because sometimes even I felt over the last 2 to 3 years, interacting with these AI systems, which are amazing, by the way, they are accurate.
Yeah.
But there is something missing out of these contexts, and the reason why I'm saying that is we don't get the relevance.
Yeah.
Right. So I just want to honest opinion. I think you mentioned today that is going to change, and coming days we might see someone building something that understands something that we can all relate to.
Yeah.
It is accessible, it is inclusive, and it gets us.
Yeah.
And
I think that is the impact at the Impact Summit that we are expecting.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think it more feels like you said, that we are very dependent on these AI tools, and it still feels like we are not connected to them enough.
Yeah.
And so I think this is all these models that are going to come out, and this Impact Summit, it's going to give us an independence moment again for India, I think.
That's a very
an
nicely
AI
put.
independence moment.
India's independent movement for AI.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, all our data would be here, all this sovereign stack that we're building. I think everything will be now again independent for India.
Amazing. I think that will make a good headline as well. Finally, India's independence in AI arrives. Oh yeah, that's a very good narration. But today, I mean, there is something very interesting brewing in the India AI ecosystem out there. So why don't you break that news? What is coming? What can we expect?
Yeah. So I think the biggest news that came last night, I think last evening, was that BharatGen is going to announce a 17 billion parameter model. It's called Param 2. And to discuss this more, we have the CEO of BharatGen with us, Rishi Bal. Thank you so much, Rishi, for joining us here today on the show. And how are you doing? And how is the energy right now with the Impact Summit coming up?
Good. Thank you for having me on the show, guys. Super excited to be here. And as you can imagine, our team is completely pumped. Lots of amazing things coming out, lots of amazing things in the pipeline. So we're really happy to be here and talking about it.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. I think the Param 2 model that the announcement just came yesterday that you're going to release that. Can you tell us a little bit more about it and the stack that is going to be there?
Yeah, I think before that I want to know what is Param. We were just discussing why is it called Param. He said something. What is Param? You said
Param is most, I think, Uber kind of a thing.
Uber, like
The
top,
best, yeah.
top. Okay, I think it should come from the horse's mouth there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. You're getting into it. So a lot of the work that we've done with Param, I think it's yes, there is this goal to be the best. But I'll make a slightly like historical reference as well that was at the back of our minds when we started this work. So if you remember, there was a time when India needed supercomputers, and the import of those supercomputers was banned because I think maybe because of some nuclear testing or other activity that India was doing. And if you remember back then, the group of people at CDAC and other people came together to create India's first supercomputer and provided a sovereign solution at a time when none were available. And I think that was part of the inspiration that we had in our mind, is to say that we don't want to be in a place where policy disagreements mean that critical parts of technology are not accessible to India. And so with that in mind, we named our model Param.
So it's like the Param supercomputer that came out. I think
That is
That's right. So yeah. So it's a little bit of a hat tip to our friends at CDAC and the work and others, and for the work that they did then, and acknowledging that tech sovereignty is an important part of our mission.
Yes, I think the Param 2 model also, I was also speaking to Professor Ganesh, I think few weeks back, and he was also talking about that the recipe for this model that BharatGen is building is very different from everyone else who's trying to do it. I think even in this release, it was mentioned that you guys are building a mixture of expert model. So can you tell us something about why it was important and why did you take this approach?
Yeah, for sure. So when you're building for India, you have to I talked about sovereignty, but you also have to think a lot about accessibility of the technology, right? And accessibility means driving down that cost so that AI is available to everybody, right? And one of the things that you get with these new mixture of experts architectures is that you can actually have fewer neurons. So you map it to your brain, for example, right? Where when you're reading a book or you're viewing a movie, not all parts of your brain are actually turned on. Not all neurons are firing, just the ones that are relevant. And mixture of experts sort of allows you to be able to have a fraction of neurons or parameters that are actually firing, and that actually allows you to be able to run these at inference time at lower cost.
Okay, so this is more focused on the efficiency part and like deploying it for edge use cases, maybe like it's better for that, I think.
The next edition, so we'll actually release even smaller editions that will be appropriate for edge. But you can think of these as low cost, a low cost version that still supports 22 languages, that still supports reasoning and math and code as well.
Okay.
Amazing. So you mentioned about solving for your 22 languages there. So I want to understand Param 2 supports 22 languages in technically non-trivial, especially given script diversity, dialect variance, and data scarcity, right? So it touches all of that. So what was the hardest technical challenges the team had to solve, Rishi, and also where do multilingual models still struggle today that most people don't realize?
That's a great point. So you see, BharatGen's mission is not just to build models. We're actually trying to raise the whole AI ecosystem and contribute to that. Mm-hmm. And that's a fundamental difference between what we're doing. Is we're not only building models and applications, but we're also building the deep sort of building block layers that are needed to build this AI. So we've got teams in research. We'll talk about that. Mm-hmm. We have We have a large group of interns, so we're upskilling people. But what's not talked about is we also have a large team of people who are in that data layer. So we actually have people who are on the ground, feet on the street, talking to publishers, independent radio companies, talking to, the government, actually unlocking data. One of the biggest challenges in building Indian LLMs and Indian models is data, right?
Yeah.
There just isn't enough high quality data out on the web, right? I mean, how many tech bloggers do you know that are blogging in Hindi or Kannada, right, or Bengali? So part of what we're doing is to say, look, how do we go get that golden data set in Indian languages? And so we do a lot of work on the ground to unlock this. We also do a lot of work partnering with heritage groups that are trying to do heritage preservation. So there's groups around the country that are digitizing text, right? So they're scanning the text and they're preserving the original text. But once it's scanned, you still need a lot of work to be able to actually convert it into a true digital form. And that process is expensive and it needs a certain level of expertise. And we actually provide that to these heritage organizations where we do some of that hard work. And as a result of that, they get a copy of the data that's digital, truly digital, and then we get a copy of the data that we can use for training.
Okay.
So it's this kind of hatke on the ground work that you need in order to unlock true value for India.
Yeah, I think the thing that you're talking about is, I think the Bharat Data Saga that was also mentioned in the release. Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit more about that pipeline and how did you build all this vast data set?
That's right. So we have generated over 20 trillion tokens of data that we're training on, and we also have like, I think we're coming up on like 3 petabytes of data. So it's a massive data store that we're creating. And so going back, so what we're doing is, yes, we're trawling the web, and yes, we're getting all of those sources, but we're also going off and saying, how do we go tap this heritage data? We also do a lot of synthetic data generation in some cases where we need to have texts that are translated, and we have some great translation software that we've built. So the thing that is not visible are the models that build the models, and the work that goes on in the background to actually build that model, and that's probably the invisible part of the iceberg.
Understood. Just a follow-up question on that, Rishi. Like, what are the safeguards that exist, to ensure quality, bias mitigation, and cultural fidelity when you're building such like critical models for the nation there?
Yeah, that's a really tough one, and I wouldn't say that's a solved problem entirely, right? It's definitely a journey that we're on. We do build actually additional models in the background that do classification of data. We do models that classify for high quality, low quality. We do filtering of the data. So I think we do a lot of back end work to prepare the data to have it actually be ready.
Got it.
But I think it's a huge journey that all global model trainers are on, which is,
Got it.
it's not just the data that you're including, but also like, how do you manage the behavior, right? And there's a lot of work that we need to do there.
Amazing. Any internal like glimpse into some of these like early testing that you guys have gone through, some of the behaviors? Like, I mean, I know it's too early to ask. I think officially you guys would be releasing these things. But can you give our viewers like some of the glimpse into some of the insight that you guys have understood, which is like mind blowing, like when you tested these
Amusing to
things?
see is what the models accidentally learn, right? And so it's one of those things where you're curating for certain types of data. But let me give you an example.
Okay.
Across the board, when we train a model for Hindi, its ability to learn Hindi adjacent languages improves dramatically.
Got
right?
it.
And then it's able to apply sort of concepts that it's learned from Hindi and grammatical constructs, for example, into Marathi, right? Those are sort of adjacent languages, right? And so it's always fun to see how quickly these models are able to pick up other languages and what they pick up. Because some of the things that are different is the idioms are different, right? So across languages and cultures, the idioms can be different. And
Correct.
so you can't readily simply translate from one to the other and expect it to work. Those are the types of like cultural nuances that I think we're still, figuring out how do you educate the LLMs on.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing, exciting times, Mohit.
I,
Yeah, I think Mohit was mentioning about Impact Summit. From model to impact.
Yeah.
So the summit, demos. I mean, you just gave the early glimpse. So I just want to understand the summit. You're going to demo some of spans like government, governance, healthcare. Then you have education, finance, and cultural digitization. So these are some of the things that we can expect. But which of these use cases closest to real world scale today, Rishi? And also, what signals tell you that this AI system is ready to move from demos to deployment?
Wow, that's
Yeah.
a lot of questions packed into one.
Yeah, I'm good at asking
So
that. Yeah.
so I'll say that what we're fairly early in our AI journey, and we're just putting out some of these models. But what we've done is we've actually engaged with the industry, with users, with government from a fairly early phase. And so what we did is when we said, okay, we want to make sure that our model supports, let's say, the finance domain, right? We actually went and partnered up with one of the top 5 banks. We partnered up with one of the top 5 insurance companies. We've partnered with several state governments, with several departments within the central government. And so what we do is we early on go and recruit the partners. So applications are not an afterthought. Applications are things that we're thinking about even as we're building the models. We want to find out before we build the model what's working, what the challenges are, so that we can actually think deeply about those problems and actually bring them, into the AI models as well. So we have these partnerships, and then we have these pilots that are already running with multiple partners. And then we've also done some partnerships with defense, where we've actually got deployments alongside them as well.
Yeah, that's
Amazing.
yeah. So I think Rishi, something you mentioned about the language, like the idioms are very different in different languages, and that is something that we have been talking about for the last year. Like you cannot just translate from Western models into Indian models and everything will be the same. I think that is something that contributes to the sovereign stack and the AI infrastructure that we're building.
Correct.
So Rishi, can you tell us where is BharatGen placed when it comes to building like a digital public infrastructure for India?
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that we've invented our own model for India, because there's the sort of there's the American model, there's the Chinese model, and then we have a great idea around digital public infrastructure, or digital rails, as some people like to call it. And it feels like a very powerful idea that we can actually have shared AI pieces that can actually be built and deployed for everyone who wants to use it, right? And so, in as much as we can build shared models, you could imagine that, banks could have a shared model for managing some aspects of risk, and it gives everybody an advantage. It gives citizens a benefit, customers a benefit, and then it gives banks a benefit.
Yeah.
So I feel like these domain-specific models are going to be an important part of our strategy. And I think that's also going to be a part of how we drive down cost, right? Cost is not an afterthought in India. Cost has to be baked in. And so when you're designing these models, you can actually go for a small language model that is very good in a particular domain, and you can run that inference at 100th of the cost of what it might take to run an actual frontier model.
Yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, Rishi, coming to the builders and the ecosystem access, right? I mean, we are all like eagerly waiting to test how this thing unfold once you release it during the AI Impact Summit, and we're all excited to see how it works and test out. And I'm sure developers there are watching this, and a lot of enterprise customers are seeing this. You've emphasized on open access for startups, developers, and researchers. So, what will access actually look like in practice according to you, and what kinds of application do you hope Indian builders, create first?
Yeah. So we are releasing all of these models on Hugging Face and on AI Coach,
Okay.
right? So developers will be able to come in, and we're not just deploying like fine-tuned models. We're actually deploying the pre-trained checkpoints also.
Got it.
So developers can come in and build on top of our model to actually build their own models. They can build domain specific models. They can build application specific ones. They might be able to distill our models to be able to do something else. We'll also release in the future our own fine-tuned models,
Wow.
but we do want to give developer sort of the levers to say, look, we have multiple places I can go and play with Bharat models, depending on what my needs and my ability to deal with complexity actually look like. Now, models is again one part of what we're doing, right? We're also releasing, benchmarks. We're also releasing data sets. We are also publishing on archive. We also publish recipes. So we actually tell other model builders, here's a recipe for building this particular model. Here's what we used, and then we also publish the underlying research, so in top journals around the world. So it's sort of full stack open publishing in that regard, where we're trying to share as much as we can with the
Amazing.
developer community,
Amazing.
so that they can build exciting things on this. I think, look, there's some amazing work to be done in India at a very high level of scale. I would love to personally see what we can do in the education domain, in the governance domain, as well as the legal. So if I had to pick three, those would be my top three. But we look forward to developers using these, giving us feedback, and then that just makes us better.
Yeah, I think the part that you're publishing papers on Archive and the models are going to be on Hugging Face and AI Coach, I think that is an amazing thing, because we also keep tracking that website
Yeah.
every
on
day.
an
Some
every
new
day.
paper is coming up from either India or Western companies as well.
Yes, and we always pray that, okay, where is the Indian labs and all of that. I
Yeah.
think this is really amazing stuff to hear from you. Yeah.
So then, Rishi, are there also plans to are you also looking to export this model maybe outside? Like obviously it's going to be available on Hugging Face. How do you place this in the global context? Is it going to be like something like UPI or Aadhaar from India that goes global?
Yeah. So it's interesting you asked that, but when the Honorable Prime Minister met a group of these 12 startups that were funded with the AI mission, I think the message was very clear. Start local, but think global. And so, we're going to start with India. We're going to crack the hard problems in India, and then there's no reason to stop at that. We should make it available to the whole world. We should be deploying globally, but it's very important that we start with India as our playground, where we actually figure out these hard problems, the multilingual problems. And by the way, these are not unique to India,
Yeah.
right? There's many parts of Africa where we'll be dealing with similarly sort of multilingual, multicultural problems, as well as many parts of Europe. And this is our opportunity to sort of take the lead with India as the starting point.
Amazing, amazing. Rishi, again, once again, I thank you for taking time out and being on the show and being so candid and discussing about what we can expect from Param and how it is going to scale, the roadmap and everything. So before I let you go, the final question I want to ask is, for developers and founders who are watching this, many of whom actually want to build for India's next billion users. So what is the single biggest mindset shift is required to build AI systems for India, rather than simply adapting Western models? So yeah.
I I love that we're ending on this.
Yes.
So AI is going to be prevalent in every aspect of our lives, right? But AI is also going to disrupt every single industry, every aspect of our lives. Now, the people who should fear disruption are the incumbents, and the people that should embrace it are the ones that on the other side of that equation. And in India, I think we have an amazing intersection of rich talent in software, and we have a lot of youngsters that are hungry to go after new opportunities. What I would say is embrace AI, because you can now solve problems that only the incumbents used to have the capital to go and solve, right? You could go build complex web applications using AI that would have taken maybe 1 crore of rupees and 6 months to build, can now be done in 2 weeks, right? So we've really made technology is making disruption accessible to everyone. And so it's our choice in India as to whether we choose to be the disruptors or choose to be the disrupted. And I'm very clear which side we should be on.
I think that is the perfect message that
That sums it up. I mean, I got goosebumps while you were saying that. But amazing message, Rishi. Thank you so much once again for being on the show. Really means a lot to us, and wish you all the best, and all the team that is working day and night to get this out there for India and the next billion users. We are excited. I'm sure a lot of our viewers are excited. And we're looking really forward to the official launch and all the research papers and everything. Again, we'll be bouncing back and forth in terms of any interesting conversation that is happening in the coming days, and wish you and your team all the very best. And that's it from us. And thank you for joining, Rishi.
Thank you for joining, Rishi. All the best.
Yeah.
All the best.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, Mohit, what do you think? That was a very interesting conversation. I mean, I'm really excited. Finally, there is a sovereign model that is going to come, and our title says why India needs Bharat Gen. I hope we answered that.
I think all the answers are now with us. That we need
Okay.
something like a sovereign stack. We need a multilingual access. We need it for specific use cases and sectors. Like we spoke about defense, healthcare, and education is one of their biggest focus.
Correct.
So I think that is the right path that Bharat Gen is heading towards.
Got it.
And I think startups and researchers can build on top of this. So we are going to see a lot of use cases after this is launched.
Amazing. I mean, exciting times. I mean, I think not just now, talk about Bharat Gen, but there are also other companies who are building these models. Like we have your Sarvam, which is killing it. I mean, they're on a model releasing streak, and we're all having fun covering them. And some of these things, like, what is your take on, like, we don't have one model, but we also have like more coming in. I'm sure not just two people who are doing it. And also there is another news that came out with Anthropic building GPT model with just 43 lines of code.
I think the industry is like completely shaken right now. When it comes to India, I think if I can make that comparison.
Sure.
Sarvam and Bharat Gen are like OpenAI and Anthropic of India.
Oh wow.
Can we say that? Okay.
Yeah, we can.
So like that level of competition, that thing is finally we are able to see it in India. We were always looking at the West, ki GPT is launched, now Anthropic will launch Claude. I think now we are finally seeing this.
I'm loving the narration, like it's gonna be like, okay, duopoly, like, or I don't know, multiple, I don't want to call that term.
But everyone is building open source models here, so
Absolutely.
it's going to contribute to the industry, the ecosystem. So I think in all net, I think it's a positive that India is doing when it comes to all startups.
Amazing. I mean, I think our viewers are enjoying this. I hopefully believe so, because we definitely enjoyed the conversation in terms of what is going to come in the coming days, and we got an early glimpse and access only exclusively on AM Network here on the AI Talk Show. So yeah, thank you for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and please drop in comments and let us know what you want to know. We will try our level best to bring industry leaders, CXOs every day on this channel to make sure that everybody is updated on everything that is happening on AI and tech, and also grow together. And again, this will be live on YouTube, so you can share it, you can drop a comment. If you liked anything, you can cut short and put it on social media as well. The accessibility is for all. Again, thank you, Mohit. Thank you, Rishi, for being on the show. It was like a really interesting conversation. I learned a lot, and I'm sure there is a long way to go, but I think we are late to the party, but
we are at the right path, I think.
Right path. We learned from failures and mistakes of what the other models fail to recognize, but I think we are there. It's a good start. Again, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next episode. And think AI.
Think AI.
Amazing.